Hey guys, welcome back to the Second Time Lucky Mining channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about one of my favorite coins, Flux. More specifically, we are going to talk about the upcoming collateral halving for Flux nodes. If you are interested in more Flux content, maybe consider subscribing to the channel, as I'll be documenting and posting regular videos as I work towards achieving my goal of having a Stratus node. After a shameless plug of my channel, let's go back at the content for today. So I'm going to have a look at what is Flux. I'm going to talk about what is the new requirements for collateral for Flux nodes and when is that happening and when does it take effect. What setup have I done so far and what is the hardware that I'm using. Any lessons that I've learned throughout that process. So spoiler alert, I've definitely learned some lessons. Explain what do I still have left to do on my side, and then talk about some of the alternatives. So if setting up a Raspberry Pi is not for you, what are some of the other options that is available to you in case you still want to be part of the decentralized infrastructure journey. Okay, so what is Flux? And before I give you my not so eloquent answer, I would encourage you to go to their website. They've got amazing content explaining all of the things that they do and what they are involved in a lot more detail. But for me, the way that I like to look at it as the decentralized cloud infrastructure provider. So that's what I like to look at it. So the crypto version of AWS or Azure or Google Cloud for that matter. So, they are decentralizing those type of services. It is what I like to look at, and that's what I want to get involved in. Okay, so why am I supporting Flux? It's really two reasons. The first one is the decentralized cloud infrastructure reason. And, if you have been living under a rock for the last couple of years, there has been a massive drive for organizations or people to move all of their on-premise infrastructure, so that is databases, servers, all of the hardware that they used to have on site or in their own little data center, to move that stuff into the cloud. And what subsequently happens is, people go to the biggest providers. So all of that hardware or services has moved to the likes of Microsoft Azure or AWS or Google Cloud. And then what happens is most applications now is controlled or in a centralized manner by those corporations. And then what happens, and which is normal, what will happen is sometimes those services experiences issues like data cable cuts, issues at the data center, and then a lot of services goes down and impacts a lot of people. So, I think a lot of applications has moved to a centralized manner. And what Flux is doing is trying to decentralize that. So instead of having all of that infrastructure in one or two or three companies centralized, is to decentralize that. So to have it with multiple people. And that allows multiple people to participate in that. So it's not just one massive company earning a lot of money. It would be spread around a lot of people, and you would have a lot more redundancy in the network. So I really believe in that, and that's why I want to be part of that. So if I can run my own little data center in my garage and support the multiple applications, I'll be super thrilled with that, and that would be a win for me. The second reason is more personal, and that relates to mining. Since I've moved my rig, by the way, if you haven't watched that video of my Octominer case, since I've moved from my open frame everything into my Octominer case, it's been hell of a stable, and there's been no action. I haven't fiddled with that rig at all. So I have a little bit more time to learn some more skills. So hence, I'm tackling setting up a Flux node. Okay, so let's have a look at the halving and the new system requirements. For Cumulus, you would now need 1,000 Flux, so that's down from 10,000 to 1,000. System requirements wise, you still need 2 cores, 4 threads. Now you need 8 gigs of RAM. You need 220 gigs of SSD NVMe storage. That needs to be at a speed of 180 megabytes DWS. And then the processor needs to be able to do 240 EPS. So that is the new system requirement. So it's a bit more on the RAM and the NVMe on the storage side. And if you are looking at a VPS, that's where it will bump you up a tier or two. So once you start looking at VPSs, that's where it becomes interesting. So for numbers, you now need 12,500 Flux, so that is a nice reduction. And then you still need 4 cores, 8 threads, but now you need 32 gigs of RAM, so the RAM is increased, 440 gigs of SSD NVMe storage. The speeds should be the same as Cumulus, but the processor needs to be able to output 640 EPS. So the processor is a little bit more. Now looking at Stratus, the big boy, now you need 40,000 flux and no longer 100,000. So that's quite a lot. 8 cores, 16 threads, 64 gigs of RAM, so a lot of RAM, and then 880 gigabytes of SSD NVMe, so it's almost a terabyte there. And then the speed needs to be quick as well, so it's now 400 megs DWS, and then processor 1520. So those are the new system requirements. Okay, so what am I doing personally? So I've got about 2,400 flux, or maybe a little bit more than that. So that would mean I can stand up 2 Cumulus nodes. And for that, I am planning to stand up one with a Raspberry Pi at home and another with a VPS. And the reason why I'm going with a VPS is, unfortunately, you can only have, at this point in time, one IP address associated to one node. So unfortunately, I can only have the one IP address at my home. So that would mean I cannot have more than one at home. So going with a VPS goes against what I'm trying to achieve, which is decentralization. And me going with a VPS provider it's being centralized, which I don't want, but unfortunately that's just what I have to do until I can bump up the requirement to, let's say, a Nimbus node, and then I can put that again at home and then take it away from the VPS. So that's sort of what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm using the VPS as a stepping stone to build me up to the next tier. So that's really just what I am doing personally. I know that is also something that Flux is looking at, but you know, it is what it is at this specific point in time. Okay, so what does my Raspberry Pi setup look like? So after it's built, and I've built it already, it looks like this. So this is the sort of case, and as you can see from a comparison next to my hand, it's absolutely tiny. I still can't believe this is a computer that's got 8 gigs of RAM, and I think what's its 2 cores, 4 threads. I still can't think it's got this in. But ultimately, this is the Argon 1 NVMe or M.2 case. So at the back, it's got the Ethernet port. I think that's the power switch. It's got USB ports there, and it's got this little bridge that connects. So at the bottom is where the SSD is. So that little bridge makes sure that you can connect your SSD to the Raspberry Pi. There's more USB cables there. There's the power connection. I think that is sound. And there's the HDMI connection. So this is sort of what it ultimately looks like. And hiding this in my house is not going to be an issue. It's really tiny, so it's not a massive computer that I have. So that's sort of why I'm doing that. Now to support it, so because I bought the kit, I probably didn't need the case, but I really wanted the case. So the case wasn't really needed, but I got this Argon 1 case, and that's exactly the case that you saw. The reason why I got this case, I watched the video that Flux put out, and I'll leave a link in the video description. I'll see if I can tag it at the top as well. It's amazing from Goose, step by step. I followed exactly that video, obviously not till the end because I can't stake yet my 1000 flux, but the video is amazing, telling you exactly how to set up this flux as a node. So I'm definitely going to execute or finish the rest of it, but the video is amazing, and that's why I really don't want to make another video on it, because I don't think I can do a better job. And then on top of it, some of the other stuff that I bought is obviously the SSD. So I went with a bigger SSD than what would be required. So this is just a Western Digital Green. I think what the important thing is, and something to note out, and again Goose mentions in his video, is it needs to be a M.2 SSD and not an NVMe SSD. And also on top of that, the connectors. So if you have a look at what these connectors are, I think there's 3 types, a M and A and M and A or something like that, but you need to watch out with the Argon case. It can't accept any connection. So I went with, in this case, it's the M connector. So you can see it looks like a little M. So I went with that from a safety perspective, just to make sure that it is compatible with the Argon case. So that's something to take note of. The other thing that I did was so the Raspberry Pi kit comes with 32 gigs of storage in an SD card. So it looks like this. Let me show you here. So here is the actual SD card. So you can see it's 32 gigs. And according to Goose or the Flux video, you would need more than 32 gigs. So what I ended up doing is I just got 128 gig equivalent, so that makes sure I don't have any issues on that side. So ultimately, the only things or what I got was upgraded the SD card. I got an SSD that is again overkill. I shouldn't have gone so big, but you know, the idea is I can use it in the future. And then again, I got the case. So that's sort of the components that I'm using to run the Flux Node. Okay, so where am I with the setup steps? Again, as I mentioned, you should really follow the video that Flux Labs puts out. It's really good. But where I am is I installed Ubuntu on here. I managed to mount the SSD, partition it, all of those type of steps. Also installed the Argon case fans and the drivers or whatever it needs specifically for that, and then installed the Docker, the Flux Docker. So I managed to do that. What do I have left really is to stake my 1000 Flux and then install the Flux OS and just finish those specific steps. So that unfortunately I can't do because you know, the halving hasn't happened yet. So but as soon as the 1st of March comes in, so by the way, from a dates perspective, the 1st to the 22nd of March is when you can do your cumulus node. So that's when 1000 Flux you can be staked. And then numbers 15 March to 5 April. And then Stratus the 1st of April to the 30th of April. So that's the important date specifically there. So you know, what I have left really is to stake and then install the OS and then do the benchmarks. So that's the important thing that I am nervous and excited for. I'm scared that this SSD is not going to cut it, but you know, unfortunately I have to wait. And you know, if people from Flux is watching this video, it will be great maybe in the future if you can add or there is a command that you can run in Ubuntu once you've set it up, just to test your benchmarks before you install the OS. But anyway, it's not available at the moment, so I just have to wait hopefully for the 1st of March to then only benchmark. But anyway, so that's a minor thing. Now the other thing that I've got left to do is sort out my VPN and port forwarding. So unfortunately I've been struggling with my VPN, and you know, since I've installed it, none of my port forwarding stuff is working. So if anybody has got a recommendation for a VPN that supports port forwarding, specifically the Flux port forwarding and maybe the Helium ones, yeah, please leave some comments at the bottom and help me out. But my current provider is not supporting it, so none of my port forwarding is working at this specific point in time. So I understand that you know, setting up a Flux node on a Raspberry Pi is probably not for everyone, right? But the reason why I'm doing it on the Raspberry Pi and yes, I will be doing it with the VPS as well, but the reason why I'm testing it out first with a Raspberry Pi is number one, I'm learning a new skill and I've got the physical hardware, right? So, you know, if I want to format the device or reflash it or do whatever, I can just physically go ahead and do that. On top of that, if I don't like it, so if I'm struggling or it's too hard for me to set up this Flux nodes, which it might be, right, for a lot of people, because it's definitely not easy. You know, I have hardware, right? So I can use it for something else, or I can sell it again so I can get my money back. The alternative is if you're doing the same thing with a VPS, you know, most of the time it's like a monthly cost that you have to pay, or even yearly. So it becomes a expensive thing to try out in case you don't like it. So that's sort of the reason why I want to play first with the Raspberry Pi, and it's my first time, right? So I'm obviously excited to play with the Raspberry Pi. Now, so for alternative, you know, if Raspberry Pi is not for you and you don't want to be involved with that at all, there are some other alternatives that you can consider. So as I mentioned, the VPS route, so that would be standing up a VPS with a provider and then going through sort of the same steps. You would just skip straight to installing the Docker and installing Flux OS, right? So that's the easier part. You don't have to manage any hardware on your system. And for that, there's a couple of options. You know, on Flux's website, and again, I'll leave a link to that, there's a couple of options for VPS providers. For me, I'm toying up 3 providers, so I had a look at the cost. So I think I've spent a couple of hours looking at the different tiers and, you know, what would be cheaper and what would be not. And for me, the X factor really comes into the SSD speed and the benchmarking. So that's really what's going to decide which one I go with. But at least for now, I'm considering Contabo. I think there's a lot of people on Contabo. Netcups is the other one. And I think Stratus or Stratmore is the other one that I'm considering. So on paper, at least those are the ones that for me is either the cheapest, and consistently, by the way, you can go to the nodes statistics, and that's what I've had a look at, what most people are using that is in my region. So, you know, I had a quick look at the stats, and I wish that, you know, Flux would have that stat so you can sort of see how many nodes are completely decentralized versus which ones are with VPSs. But again, you know, there's a lot of stuff that they can do. But anyways, I had a look at it myself and then sort of counted. But those are the three ones that, you know, I'm planning to use. I'm also reaching out to, you know, the Flux community. And again, the Flux community is amazing. The amount of people that are helping me either on Discord or on Twitter with, you know, which provider should I be using, having issues with port forwarding, the amount of people that is willing to help you is amazing. I can't state that enough. So there's a lot of people that is willing to help you if you're willing to go through the effort, right? So for me, from a VPS point of view, I'm looking at Netcups, Contabo, and then Stratmore, I think is the other one. I've heard good things about Netcups, so I might try them first and see how that goes. So if you wanted to stake some coins and you're not interested in learning some Linux commands either on the Raspberry Pi or on a VPS, the only option would then be staking, or that's the other option. And unfortunately for that, the only exchange that supports that at this specific point in time is CoinMetro. So I'm not really a user of CoinMetro. I've now signed up just to go and have a look, and I'll show you sort of what it looks like on the computer shortly. But that's the only exchange that I know that supports it. They do have a minimum requirement, I think, of 500 Flux, so you can't stake less than 500. So there is that barrier, but it's at least easier, right? So you don't have to do hassles with setting up networks and VPNs and Linux commands. All of that nonsense is taken care for you. You can just stake and then forget about it. So you know, that is a option. I know also Flux is working on an option, so I think it's on their roadmap to allow staking from the Zelcore wallet, and that's the option that, you know, I can't wait to have, because, you know, on CoinMetro is KYC, so you would need to do your verification. And again, it's not really an exchange that I've used at all. You know, if it's on something like Binance, that would be very easy for me because it's an exchange that I'm already on. So you know, for me personally, I'm not super excited about CoinMetro, but I'm gonna give it a try and see what it looks like, just to provide information to people out there. But as far as I know, they have a lot of coins staked, you know, from them. So I think there's about 9 million Flux staked on CoinMetro. So there's a lot of people that's you know, got their eggs in that basket, and I think that's about, it's almost 10%, or it's actually more than 10% of the total amount of Flux that stakes is in CoinMetro. So it's quite a lot that's staked in there. So hopefully that is some sort of security for people. But you know, for me, those are your options for staking, right? So you can either wait till later on in the year that it's supported in the Zelcore wallet, and again, that's the one that I really want to do. Or you can do CoinMetro now. I know, as I mentioned, Flux is working with other exchanges to offer that feature, but I don't know what those exchanges are. I'm hoping that it's Binance, but unfortunately that's just you know, the situation at the moment. Alright, so now that we've talked about the hardware requirements and my Raspberry Pi node and some of the VPS options, or even staking on an exchange, the elephant in the room is you obviously need the correct amount of Flux. So if you've got it in your Zelcore wallet, great, end the video, don't worry about it. If you don't and you'd like to procure or buy more Flux coins, so there's a couple of tricks or a couple of things that maybe I can help with, the lessons that I've learned in this process. So as you guys know, you need 1,000 for Cumulus, and I think 12,500 for Nimbus, and then for Stratus you need 40,000, right? So you can obviously buy these coins as well. The trick is, so a trick for me at least, You know, I bought some of my coins from Binance. So you can buy the native Flux coin on Binance. However, when you try and send that from Binance to your Zelcore wallet, you've got two options. You can send it obviously in the native coin in Flux, but the gas fees are massive. And I'll show you on the screen just now. So, you know, what I did was I sent it to Zelcore using the Flux Binance Smart chain. So the fees were like 0.1 US cents or something like that, so it's like nothing compared to, I think it was like $50 or something ridiculous when I tried to send 1,000 Flux across, right? So it was a lot of money. If you do it that way, so if you do it the first way, the gas fees are massive, so you'll lose a little bit of money on the gas fees, but it will be ready to be staked. So that's the other thing that I learned the hard way, is you need the native Flux coin in your Zelcore wallet to stake. There shouldn't be any Binance Smart Chain Flux or any Solana Flux or anything like that. So it needs to be Flux in the native coin. So if you do want to take or reduce your fees when moving it from the exchange to your Zelcore wallet, like I did, like I said, I used the Binance Smart Chain Flux. What you would then have to do is convert that Binance Smart Chain Flux into the native Flux. And for that, there's a little bit of a trick. But anyway, let me show you in the computer. Okay, I had to do this now a second time. The first time my mic wasn't working, but that's good because now you can see the end-to-end flow. So what I'm going to do is, obviously I need to get ultimately Flux in the native currency in my Zelcore wallet to stake, right? So that's the end goal. In order to do that, I need to buy some Flux on an exchange and send it there and make sure it's in the native coin. So for that, what I'm gonna do, first step is gonna buy some Flux coins. And for that, I'm gonna use the Binance exchange, but please feel free to use whichever exchange you would like. I think on Flux's website, they've got a list of which exchanges do they support or their coins are on, so you can have a look at that. If you wanna use Binance, I mean, I do have an affiliate link at the bottom, but you can use whichever exchange you want, so please don't feel obliged to use that. So for transparency, you know, I mine Ethereum and then get paid out in Bitcoin. So what I've done is I've moved some of my mined Bitcoin onto the Binance exchange, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use that Bitcoin to buy Flux. So that's sort of what I'm trying to do. So for that, I'm gonna go here and go to my wallet. So I'm gonna go fiat and spot. And what I've already done, and you can't see the totals here, but it's about $100 worth of Bitcoin. So I've already moved $100 worth of Bitcoin in here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to find Flux. So I'm going to type in Flux here in the search section. And then I'm going to say trade. And then what is the trade pairing? So I'm going to trade Flux for BTC. So that's what I'm going to do. What will happen is it will automatically go into this trading view. I don't want to view a video on it, but you can do that. So I'm just going to skip all of that. What you can do now here is sort of have a look at the price. You know, I'm not interested in the price. I'm a believer of Flux in the long term, so I really don't care what the price is now. All I want to do is convert, and they've got a couple of options here. I'm just going to use the spot price. So what I want to do is go market. And then I want to buy, so what do I want to buy? Normally on the green side is people looking to buy, on the sell side is people looking to sell, and it's sort of ranked here from cheapest to most expensive, or the other way around. So from cheapest to most expensive. So what I want to do is I want to buy Flux. So I want to buy everything, and then what is the price? I'm going to take whatever is the market price. And I'm going to use all of my Bitcoin. So you can see here 0.0029999 for Bitcoin. So I'm just going to use the market, but you could use the other functions here. So I'm just going to say buy. It's going to say the market price will be 7% higher, latest market price. Yeah, I'm okay with that. So I don't want to hang around. Or what I can do is I can select this price. So I can go, let's just buy it. I'm happy with the 7%. So you can see I've bought, it flashed up very quickly, but I would have now bought. So if I go back to my wallets, so if I go to fiat and spot, I should now see that I do have some flux there. So you can't physically see how much I have there, but I think it's about 80 flux. So this is flux in the native coin. So what I would need to do now is move this to my Zelcore wallet. In order to do that, I would then go withdraw. And this is now where the trick comes in. So it's going to ask me to withdraw. And you've got two options here really. So if I drop down on network, and this is now where the catch is. So if you're moving it from Binance or from some sort of exchange, you can use it. In this case for Binance, you can use the Binance Smart Chain to move it. And it's going to cost me 0.12 flux. So it's not that expensive. But if I move it in the native coin, it will be 17 flux. I'll lose a lot of flux with doing that specific transaction. So it's like 37 Australian dollar. It will cost me a lot of fees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of the Binance Smart Chain to send it across. So in order for me to do that, there's a couple of tricks, or there's some things that you need to take care of. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to quickly have a look. I need to specify an address in here, but it's important that I specify the correct address. So that's probably the most important step. So here you can see I've done it a couple of times. So this is the 26 that I've moved for the first time of the video. So as I mentioned, I'm doing it now a second time. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to my Zelcore. And again, I've hidden all of this stuff here. So what you can see here is currently I have native flux and I have some BNB smart chain coins. So you will need this, but for now, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for my wallet address for FLUXBSC or Binance Smart Chain Flux. So for that, I'm going to go in here. So here you can see I've got an address for Flux Binance Smart Chain. If you didn't, all that you needed to do is add that in. So let me just do that in income so that you can get an idea. So I'm just going to go to, let's say, income. I'm going to say manage assets. I'm going to say add an asset. And then what I'm looking for here is I'm going to just specify Flux, and it will show me all of the options. So the one that I'm going to be doing, and that's what you would see on the Binance side, is this FLUXBSC. So that's the one that I'm going to add. So let me add it here. You can see it's now saying at the top it's been added. Then if I go to show me 0 values, and you can see there's nothing in there, but now I've got a wallet with an address. So let's use this one as an example. So I'm going to click on it, and then what I'm looking for is the receiving address. So I'm going to click receive and then copy the address, and that's the address that I'm going to use in Binance. So I'm going to paste that address in there, and then I'm going to specify what is the network. So again, very important, that address is a Binance Smart Chain address. So I'm going to select that, and then there will be a warning on Binance to say, are you 100% sure? And I'm going to say, yes, I'm sure. I've double checked this. Say yes. Right, it's going to ask me the amount. So I'm just going to say move everything. So here we can see what the amount is. I've got 80 flux, yay. So I'm going to click withdraw. It's going to say, are you sure? I'm going to say yes, confirm. And then it's going to give me all of these risk warnings. Yeah, I fully understand. Click confirm. Click continue. And then I need to do some verification. So after I've done the double verification to send funds. So by the way, that's quite good, because make sure that it's only me sending it. So it sends an email address and a text to my phone. But this is now the last option or prompt that I get. It says it can take up to 12 hours. Hopefully it doesn't take that long. I'll click complete. And that would be me sending it from, from Binance to my Zelcore wallet. So the next step would be then to have a look at Zelcore and then convert this into the native coin. So that's the next steps that I'm going to show you guys. So I'll wait for a couple of confirmations. I think it's going to be 15 confirmations that's needed. Alright, so now I've received confirmation from Binance that they have moved my Binance Flux from Binance to my Zelcore wallet. So all that we now need to do is convert that Binance Smart Chain Flux to normal Flux. And for that, I'm going to go to Zelcore. So if you remember, this is now in my income wallet. And then here is my FLUXBSC token. So that's what's moved from Binance. So if I just click on that, we would see I've received the payment. So there probably would have been a lot of confirmations on it already. Now, the other thing that you would see in here, so if I go back to the wallet, is I moved a little bit of Bitcoin in here as well. So the reason behind that is we will need to, when we do the conversion from Binance Smart Chain Flux into normal Flux, we will obviously use the Binance Smart Chain for that, and we will have to pay a little bit of fees for that. And for that, you need BNB on the Binance Smart Chain in the exact wallet that you're doing it. So that's a little trick, and that's what you would see in my mining wallet, right? So that's what I have here in my mining wallet. So you need to have it in the wallet that you're doing the swap. So that's something that I learned the hard way, and that's why I'm sharing it with you guys here. So anyway, so let's show you the error, what you will get. So if you try and convert FLUXBSC into normal Flux, so what you would do for that is we would go to apps, we will make use of Fusion, and then what we are going to do, or what we ultimately want to do, is we want to take FLUXBSC and convert that to normal Flux, right? So this is the what we want to achieve, right? So I would say max here, so take my 80 and convert it into normal Flux. You would see there is a cost, so there's a cost of 1.5 Flux. That is still way smaller than the 17, I think it was 17 that Binance charged me to move it in here. So I mean, if you don't want to go through this hassle, you can just move it in here. I mean, everybody can make their own decisions, but for me, I mean, I'm interested to have as much Flux as possible. So anyway, so if I try and do this, and you can see the other thing that's important, lessons that I've learned, is it remembers the last wallet that you were in. So this is now in my income wallet. So that's where sometimes when you click max, it doesn't show anything if you're in the wrong wallet. But anyway, now for that, if I click swap and I say yes, you would get this error message here. So it says insufficient funds to pay Binance Smart Chain transaction fees. So that's, as I mentioned, even though I do have some BNB in another wallet, it doesn't recognize that. So that needs to be inside the same wallet. Now, how do I get that? It's pretty easy. So I would go to exchange this time around, and I'm just going to do a quick swap. And this is now where that Bitcoin comes in. So I'm going to take my Bitcoin from my income wallet. So I'm going to say max. So take all of that. So it's about $12 worth. So 0.00329,385. And then I'm going to convert that into BNB. So I'm going to BNB. The one that I'm interested in is this Smart Chain BNB. So you would have seen the error message that I got. So this is the one that I want. So I would specify that. It will work out a rate. So you would see it will cost me a little bit. So I'll move from $12.46 worth to $11.21. So I'll lose about, what's this, $1.25 is what I lose out of that trade. So you can see I've done it before, and that would have been in the other wallet. So all that I'm going to do here is click swap. Okay, so now you can see I've got exchange processed. I click close. Now we just need to wait a little bit until that is finished. So if I go back to my wallet, so I'll go back to portfolio, you would see that Bitcoin is now gone. So that would have been the swap. So I just need to wait a couple of minutes until I see my asset coming in here. So what I'm going to do is just add the asset. So I'm going to go manage assets, add asset, and then in this case I'm going to add BNB, and then the one that I'm looking for is this BNB Smart Chain. So that's the one that I want to add, right? So I'll just click on that, add. So now I just need to wait a little bit until the monetary value would reflect here. Okay, so here I am in my income wallet. My Binance Smart Chain is now there. So now the last step is just to convert this FLUXBSC token into Flux using this BNC Smart Chain BNB. So that again, I'm going to go to apps, I'm going to go Fusion, and in this case, I'm going to go and convert my BSC, so FLUXBSC, into Flux. And then I'm going to say maximum. And as you can see here, what it's going to try and do is convert the 80 into 78 Flux. So as you can see, it will still cost me 1.5 Flux, so similar to what I had last time. But this time around, if I click swap, it will actually go and do it. So as you can see, I'm going to go swap and say yes. And then the transaction will register. So you can see there at the top. So then I just have to wait a little bit, and then that confirmation should be done. But that's really how easy it is. So ultimately, there is a little trick. As I mentioned, you do need to have Binance Smart Chain in the wallet that you are doing the swap. So I just use some Bitcoin to make that happen. But that's ultimately how you would get Flux in your main wallet. So we'll give it a couple of minutes and then it should be there. After waiting about a minute or two, I can see that Flux is now inside my income wallet. And if I just show 0 balances and hide it again, you would now see that Flux is in there. So if I click on it, you would see the one transaction just come through. So if I click on it, I can see there's been 2 confirmations for it. So now I do have my Flux in the native coin in my Zelcore wallet. So I can definitely now stake from here. So that's the idea. Obviously I need to get 1,000 for me to stake, but that's really how easy it is to move something or buy it in Binance, move it across on the Binance Smart Chain, and then convert it into the native coin. So it's really not that bad. It's just a couple of steps. If you've liked the video, please like it and maybe consider subscribing. If you didn't, please specify in the comments what you would like me to change. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.